I remember when I first came and started working with Luke, you know, obviously at that time, really all I did was sales calls, right? And it was like 2020 COVID where, you know, we had to make some changes, right? And that's when Practice Beacon started coming out. And so I remember like I'd be bringing on new partners and I'd start looking in their Practice Beacon account, and like as a sales guy at heart who's just lived in CRM systems my entire life, I remember like messaging Luke and Justin. I'm like, dude, like what's going on with these leads? Like nothing's happening. People are just leaving money on the table, and like I wanted to help people. And so that's, I think, where like a lot of training calls really started to come around, because I was having like a panic attack, like as a salesperson, just seeing all this revenue sitting on the table.
Call them back a day later,
yeah. And that's where the light bulb went for me. Obviously, Luke and Justin already had the vision at that point, but for me, that's when I went, oh, the missing link here is most orthodontic practices, medical practices in general, they have no idea how to convert like cold traffic or somebody who's very, very early on in the sales process. And for me, I was like, well, that's kind of what I've done my whole life. You know, most of the sales that I've had to do weren't like spoon-fed from a pedo. It was like some stranger who clicked on a Facebook ad. And we got to go from stranger to relationship.
A real sales process.
A real sales process. I was like, oh, well, I can actually add some value here to the partners, because this is what I've been doing for 10 years of my life. And then Practice Speaking came out, and then I was able to see like the holes. And I think that was, at least on my side of things in the business, that was definitely a catalyst to be able to start rolling things out like we're doing with
you. And probably most orthos didn't know what a real sales process was, and there's such opportunity when you figure that out. I think the first time around, you know, the front desk would complain that we'd have a no-show, and it wouldn't be the type patient that we were looking for, and they would no-show, and we would call y'all and be like, these are bad leads, you know, and you're like, we got frustrated at that time. And the second time around, we had a mindset change to realize no lead's a bad lead. And y'all taught us that, and taught
unless
our
they
staff
don't have
that.
teeth.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Even in our business, I tell people, you know, we have the lowest close rate out of anybody. Like if you look at our sales process, I mean, and you know,
that's because it's hard for orthos to have a mindset change.
And I'll you tell people, hey, you know, we could label all these orthodontists. Some of them are dentists too, bad leads. The reality is we'll get people on 3-4 years later because we just keep following up, and then we'll do business together, and it's a wild success. That's kind of unheard of in orthodontics, or even a business where there's a really short sales process. And traditionally, through referral networks, it also caters to a very short sales process and kind of layups, you know, like, hey, my dad's a pediatric dentist. He says little Johnny needs to start orthodontic treatment. And he literally handed me a card and said, call them, you know, this week.